And we are live. I'm coming live not from my normal place, not from my home where I commonly am and live in Texas, but I am coming from the beautiful East Coast, North Carolina, and it is spectacular here. So, what is today? Today isn't me talking at you, it is me being with you, it is me engaging some coaching with you. So, I do these every Monday at 5:30 Central, 6:30 Eastern, 3:30 Pacific. We'll do live unscripted coaching. So if you are struggling with something, if you're stuck in relationship hell, limbo, pain, if there is a trauma or something that you need to explore, you're at a crossroads in your life, you're curious about where you're at, I ask that you make a request to join this live. I will choose someone and I will bring you up and we will unpack that thing that is you at the moment and what you're moving through. So let me have a look. Nikki, you were the first one to put your, I didn't think you put a virtual hand up, but you're the first one to ask for a request. So I'm just bringing you on board. It will take a moment. Hello.
Hi, how are you?
Hi, how are you?
Great. I was feeling a lot of resistance to requesting to join, but leaning into that.
But you did, and I think you were the first one to do it. So well done.
Thank you. Thank you.
Honoring you. So thank you, Nikki. So for those of you that are unfamiliar with this, Nikki and I are just basically going to have a session, if you like, a conversation, a dive, an exploration of self. So firstly, I want to let you know that this is a really, really safe space. So what I mean by that is that there's compassion here and there's not judgment. And at any point, Nikki, if whatever we're exploring feels a little too much, we just pull back, right? You are the captain of your ship. I'm your first mate. I'm here maybe pointing out certain things, giving some attention to certain aspects of your environment and where you're at. But ultimately, you're making the decision. So I really just want to empower you with whatever tools you need, and I'll support you, of course, in that, but with whatever tools you need to make the decisions for you and to really stand in your power. So with that said, thank you. With that said, how can I serve and support you today?
Well, I first wanted to acknowledge you. Thank you for opening up this container and making me really feel safe, because what I'm going to share feels very vulnerable. So it has to do with money and finances. And recently I've been really struggling, really in a place of lack and scarcity and survival the past 2 months. And I kind of feel like it's creating a loop where, because I'm coming from this place, I'm not creating results and magic in my business. And it's almost feeling like I'm egoically taking action and doing because I feel this pressure.
Yeah.
And I have been here before and I'm sick of it. I'm done with it. And I realized recently there's this pattern of like borrowing money and like feeling like I need to be saved. Yeah.
That's big. That's
Yeah.
big. Thank
So
you for sharing that. Is there anything else you wanted to add to that?
I think there's a part of me that thinks that there's a lot of doubt that I can't do this on my own.
Yeah.
And maybe there's fear too from previous failed businesses.
Yeah.
And also like now, because of the fear, I'm like looking to do things outside of my purpose, like getting back into sales part-time, like selling solar panels, which I'm all about saving the planet and the environment, but it doesn't feel in alignment with my purpose and like what I'm passionate about. So
yeah. Well, I hear that, and I really appreciate you bringing this issue to this platform and to this this exploration, because I know you're not alone in that. I've been there personally many times in my life. And so I can not only personally relate, but I've also worked with this with other clients as well. And so what you're speaking to is a really big shift in consciousness and perception, right? And it brings up a lot when we feel we're in survival mode and we're in scarcity, or we feel stuck, or we feel we're looping old patterns and we've been there before. We tend to think of, I'm not enough. I must be doing something wrong. I must be bad at what I do. I'm not worthy enough. I'm not smart enough. Whatever the inner narrative is, right? Like it's this lack. It's connected to the lack. Now, we could pull many threads with this, but something you said really struck me, and I want to pull that thread if it's okay with you. And the thing that struck me the most was the part around, I've been here before, and it's this feeling of being saved or needing to be saved.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I look at life, when I look at people's complications, their complexity, their challenges, their pains, their fears, their traumas, I'm looking at threads, I'm looking at patterns, I'm looking at how they also emotionally and spiritually relate to that pattern and the effect that it's having on their physiology and their psychology. I'm also looking at how our past, left unchecked and unresolved and in pain still, impacts our present. And so the question I have for you around needing to be saved is, when you connect into yourself, and if you feel comfortable, of course, you may want to close your eyes, hand on chest, hand on belly. And the reason we do that is because it's not necessarily a symbolism of spirituality. It's more that we are literally calming our nervous system by placing our hands in gentle, nurturing touch on our nurturance canal that feeds information to our brain that lets us know we're connected, grounded, and safe. So the question I have for you is, when you reflect back on your life, what are some of the earliest experiences of you experiencing needing to be saved or being saved?
I feel like my parents were saving me a lot.
Mm.
Even when I was in the wrong and got in trouble, I felt like they always had my back and they
Mm.
always saved me. And hmm, I think there's definitely spending patterns of overspending, and I
Mm.
think it could be like a protector
Mm.
of feeling certain emotions. But it's like when I got into those, when I was in those patterns and behaviors, like in college or when I was traveling Southeast Asia, then I called my mom and dad to save me.
Mm. Okay. So this is really healthy awareness. Let's just go a little deeper. So with respect to the saving or being saved and being supported, and knowing that you always, or often at least, have something or someone or people to fall back on, for you, what is the payoff and what is the benefit that it gives you for not being, for lack of a better term, let's just use this word now, not being more independent? So let me ask it in another way. Where was being independent or being by yourself in certain ways, particularly as a child, where was that really harmful or hurtful for you?
When I was by myself as a child,
Mm.
um, what I don't know, this is coming to mind, but I used to get night terrors when I was little, and
Okay.
I would always like wake up screaming and thinking I was dying, and my dad would come in and wake me up and tell me you're okay, everything's okay, and I would be like I'm dying. Was very afraid of death and dying. Every night was like nightmares about that.
For how long?
For almost a whole year.
Mm. And during that time, how old were you?
I was in kindergarten, so 5 or 6.
Okay. And prior to that, and you were very young, so it's okay if you don't remember. Was Dad present in your life? Was he working? Was he available? Was he where was he?
Yeah, he was available. He definitely worked a lot. He owns an
Mm.
accounting firm, and always has. But I would say he was around. But I was an only child. Like I was the only child of my mom and dad together. And I have three half sisters, same dad, and he had full custody of them, but they're a lot older, so they had left. They all left from the house when I was around 5, 6 years old,
Mm.
and so maybe there's some
So
abandoned stuff.
maybe, perhaps, but let's just explore that how you felt and what your experience was of your father in a deep way, and mother as well. In fact, your whole family dynamic when you had all your sisters there, and when you were by yourself. So, can you speak just a little bit to that?
I feel like for a lot of my life, I've had this story that I'm all alone, and there's
Mm,
been a deep fear of being alone and like
mm,
ending up alone. And
mm.
but it's interesting because I've always been in relationships like that, the codependency pattern, um,
To avoid being alone.
to avoid being alone.
Yeah. And so I'll tell you something else that I find interesting as well is that if you need help, sorry, let me go back. If an area of your life is in struggle
Hmm.
and you actually have a supportive family, and it sounds like you do, your mother and your father are supportive, at least in the physical, worldly sense,
Hmm.
then if we fear being alone, and thank you for your honesty, by the way, it's very, very helpful for you too, right? But if we fear being alone, we will create circumstances where we're not alone, often in the extremes. So I'm not saying that as a 5-year-old girl, it's your fault or that you created night terrors, but our nervous system and our psychology will orientate towards situations and circumstances that support us in avoiding the thing that we fear the most, i.e., being alone. And so, as a child, having night terrors and having dad come in and soothe you and support you and see you and not have you be alone is a beautiful way to reinforce that I don't need to be alone.
Mm.
As an adult, unconsciously creating circumstances where you're not alone in your problem solving, where you're not alone in your life,
Mm.
serves that part of you that fears being alone. What are you hearing me saying? What are you feeling?
What I'm hearing you say is that my fear of being alone has created a feedback loop of
Mm,
me creating circumstances where I'm not alone. And it's it's almost like the fear of being alone is like I'll do everything I can to not be alone. And that
yeah.
what I'm feeling is there's a tension in my solar plexus. So I think the message from this energy is like something with my power. Um,
Yeah. So let's pause. Let me pause you there, and I don't mean to be rude. I just want, I want to explore that. I want to go a little deeper into that. So let's just be in the body for a minute. So let's just focus on somatics, right? So there's something happening in your solar plexus. I want you to describe what's happening in your solar plexus.
it's like this energy. It feels like a circle, and it feels like it's big, like my whole stomach, like against the
Yep.
all the edges. It feels like hollow,
Yep.
um, but it's like a little uncomfortable,
Okay.
and it feels like it wants to like leave.
Leave.
Um,
Okay. What needs to happen for it to leave? If it wants to leave, do you give it permission to leave? And what needs to happen for it to leave? And
What
remember,
needs to,
breath, sound, and movement can be very, very helpful in shifting and moving energy. And say what you were going to say when you're ready.
what needs to happen is more self-love.
What does that look like in this moment in terms of physical action? Think breath, sound, and movement. Think less words are okay, but think less words and think more somatic movement. Just trust yourself. You're doing really well.
This almost feels like anger.
So we're going to just pull that through. We're going to follow the feeling. So if anger could express right now, just you and I here in this space, Nikki, just you and I, if anger could express right now, well, how would anger want to express?
Ah!
Sit and feel. There it is. Just allow yourself to just feel, just keep following the feeling. If there's more screaming that wants to take place, allow that primal scream to happen. If not, just observe. You're doing really well. If there's any tension or pressure behind the eyes or any other emotion that wants to come through, just giving it permission, knowing that you're safe to do so. You don't need to understand the anger.
Actually telling me to just be with it versus like shaking or screaming and
You're doing really well. Just trust your body. Trust what is arising for you. If I feel there's something that's, you're in an avoidant pattern, I'll support you through that. You're going to be okay. What's happening now in your solar plexus? Just describe what's unraveling there for you.
kind of feels like it's coming up.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Coming up into your chest?
Yeah.
Yeah. And what's the sensation there?
It's like my heart, my heart is beating. My heart is beating. Now it keeps moving up. It's now up to my throat.
Yeah?
It kind of feels
What?
like a block. It's still like
Mm-hmm.
full.
Mm-hmm. And so it feels a little blocked. Just stay there for a moment because it was moving before. So now it's paused here and it feels blocked. And so I just want you to ask that block what it needs to unblock.
To stop hiding this, to speak up,
So
to
beautiful. So stop hiding, speak up. What does that look like in the now moment in terms of not hiding and speaking up? What does it sound like? What are the words that you need to hear? What's the expression that needs to take place right here and right now?
I feel not enough and that's okay.
Is there any other sound that needs to be expressed? Does that part of your body require gentle touch? Deeper level of attention, perhaps? Are there any other words that need to be spoken?
Maybe like sing a little.
If you feel comfortable to sing, that would be beautiful. That's you in deeper
I don't
levels of autonomy.
I don't really sing though.
Mm, mm. Beautiful courage. Yeah, you do sing. Hmm. So just checking in with that throat now. Does it feel blocked still?
No, it feels open.
Mm. Checking in now with your solar plexus again. Hand on your solar plexus. What's happening there?
Open.
Open. How do you feel in your body compared to when you first came here?
I just got a message too that
Mm.
that like connecting with my body actually connects me with my the little girl inside of me.
Mm. It does.
Yeah.
It
And so
does.
I don't think I realize how disconnected I am throughout the day and out of
Yeah.
my body I am. So
Yeah.
right now I feel super grounded and clear and focused and present and
Mm.
just like here and very open.
Yeah. We've created that channel because, we move around as children during our formative years, absorbing the world, right? Um, and interpreting the world in very specific ways. And we make what we see about the world mean something about who we are as well. And so, what you've done today and what you've moved through today is really a deeper expression of what has been stuck. And there's obviously more there, but the connection, you came here with scarcity and looping thoughts about being in lack, being in scarcity, not being successful in your business. And ultimately, that's connected to self worth, ultimately, right? But there are other elements there. And what we unpacked today, one of the elements was loneliness. And one of the ways that you avoid being lonely, or a couple of ways, is being in perpetual relationship, maybe being codependent, not choosing the best aligned partners for you, and also placing yourself in position where people get to care for you. And what you just discovered now was when you made that connection with your body and your little girl, is that you as adult whole Nikki gets to be present for your little girl and be available to her and be available to that part of you that's felt lonely for so long in her life and hasn't quite connected those dots and hasn't quite understood that and has just acted in ways, in often extreme ways, because we do this because when we're hiding or harboring intense and or extreme fears, feelings, traumas, whatever it may be, we often have to act in a very similar way at the same level of intensity to gain the remedy to that, or the temporary band-aid to that. That's what it ends up being, right? But when we do more open whole work with ourselves, very similar to what you're doing now, when you're connecting to the body and you're connecting to that part of your psychology that looks like a 5-year-old little girl, which is you X amount of years ago, what you're actually doing is rewriting, reframing, rewiring, reconnecting to this part of you that has been dormant for so long. And so what tends to then happen is the old coping strategies that you use to get attention or to feel supported or to feel loved or to avoid being lonely and feeling loneliness, they start to shift and change, and you no longer rely on those
Mm,
strategies anymore
yeah.
because you're internally sourcing your support as opposed to externally sourcing it through intimate relationships, sexuality, parents, whatever it may be. You're now not feeling lonely because you've got you. Now, if you're not feeling lonely, Imagine what can happen in your business, not only in create, your business is an extension of you and your service, your expression, not only monetary wise and abundance wise and irregularity, consistency and flow, but also how you show up to yourself.
Mm. Magic.
That's special.
Yeah. 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 And what I'm hearing too is like I have based my value and worth off of finances and money,
Yep.
whereas what I'm receiving from you is that it's actually the opposite. When we feel worthy and enough and valuable, then that's what creates that reflection in our bank account and in our clients. And I think I've been doubting my abilities. Like I'm not bragging, but I'm an incredible coach and guide. And I think there's a part of me that's been like, oh, am I? You know?
Mm.
And so then
Yeah.
that's creating the results of not getting clients recently.
I hear that. And sometimes we also get stuck in comparison, unconscious and or conscious. And it's not necessarily a direct relation. I'm not saying that you're comparing yourself to other coaches.
Mhm.
You could be comparing yourself even at some level to the success of your father's business and not wanting to let him down. But you also find that the way that you connect most intimately with him, or the way that you receive his love in the best way, is when you require a savior. In other words, when you're in victim mode and he's in savior mode, right? And that's probably
That, that actually hit. That I felt that.
I could
Wow.
see that in your body. And I'd say there's probably an element of that that comes out in your partnerships and your intimate partnerships too.
I think it's reflective of everything in all my relationships.
Yeah. And it feels very, very special to have saviors in our lives, but things we need to be our own savior. So it feels very, we feel important when we have saviors. So you can't have a savior without a victim. So you're going to be playing the victim, whether it comes out in your sexual polarity, in your intimacy, in the love, or it comes out in your business. You'll need to be a victim to have a savior if the savior is very important to you. But when you become your own savior, at some level, you don't need to be the victim. You don't need to play that card. It doesn't have to control you. It doesn't have to be your archetype.
Mm.
And what happens is when we play the victim, we have a savior, we also have to have a villain. And sometimes we make ourselves the villain. We get caught in this drama triangle, or we make something else or someone else the villain as well. So for you, my dear, I think it's very important you begin to unpack a lot of how this impacts your life and how it's impacted your life, and know that you are worthy, of course, and know that the more you internally source your power, the more consistent you become in everything that you're experiencing in your life.
Mm. Yeah, really getting clear on what's this costing me and
Yeah,
what
the clarity piece is very important. I'm definitely won't take that away. I feel for you, a lot of your work, Nikki, is going deeper into the body as well and connect and inner child work, and whether it's internal family systems or something else. I can speak to you because you understand this language, you're adept in this space. I think that inner child work and that somatic works combined is going to be really deep for you and quite profound in releasing a lot of old stories, narratives, patterns, ways of being that have impacted you and affected you for a very long time. And I think you're coming to a point now in your life, this is what I'm seeing, that you're really ready for that change at a very visceral, deep level.
yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, I feel that too.
yeah.
In order to receive more abundance, like expanding my capacity to receive,
Mm.
and so regulating my nervous system to be able to receive that.
That part, yeah. And so previously, you've probably regulated your nervous system in having to create circumstances or be involved in circumstances that are very heightened that bring someone else in to help you regulate your nervous system. Nothing wrong with that, by the way, we're relational beings, but that, right? You've been over reliant on that and you haven't done it for yourself. And so learning to do it for yourself in really profound, intimate, and slow ways, that's going to be your medicine from my perspective.
Yeah, yeah. It's almost like I think that when I've been in this situation before, and it was when I was burned. I think there's an addiction to burnout. I realized.
Yeah.
There's
There are
an
probably a few different compulsions you have there.
yeah, there's like a working my ass off, getting to a certain point of exhaustion, and then it's almost like, okay, now I can rest. Now I can,
Mm,
now I can be, you
yeah.
know, regulating that nervous system, connecting with my inner child. Yeah, thank you for that.
Yeah. And keep in mind as well, what I just paid attention to what you said earlier about your dad working a lot and being very successful, but working a lot as well, right? So,
Yeah,
that's probably a pattern that you picked up in terms of this is how I define my worth in the world. And if I can be like dad at some level, then he'll see me at a deeper level as well, right? And that, again, like there's a lot here in terms of some of the threads, but you also mentioned the codependency with certain men and being in those types of relationships. That at some level is an extension of the relationship to the father. So as you're doing that inner child work and you're using your voice more and you're singing a lot more, your beautiful singing voice, because that's going to access parts of you that have been dormant, and you heal that wound with the father in an even more profound and deeper way, watch out for your expansion, girl.
watch out, world.
That's right.
Thank you
That's
so
right.
much, Anas.
Thank you. I appreciate you being here. Thank you so much for your vulnerability and your openness. And it's not an easy thing to really take ownership of, right? So just really honoring you for that. Thank you.
Thank you. Can I ask you one question before we hop off?
Yes.
So when you were in a tough place financially, what do you think was the greatest lesson that you learned when you got out of that place?
Yeah. The greater my inner work, so the more dedication, the more time and energy I committed to my inner work, the more wealthier materialistically, for lack of a better term, I became. The more consistency that I had in my finances and in my wealth and in my wealth creation. Simple as that. Like that's the simplicity of it, and it's the tough part of it too, right? Because it's not easy to do that.
Yeah, it's just the devotion to ourselves.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And I created the space and had the space very blessedly to be able to do that and
Mm,
continue to go and continue to as well. It's not the journey doesn't end,
mm. Never complete.
and it needn't be, and that's okay.
Thank you
Yeah.
so much. This was
Thank
amazing.
you. Yeah, I appreciate you. Thank you for volunteering and coming on.
Thank you. Have a great rest of your
Thank
day.
you. You
Bye.
too. Take care. Thank you.
Bye.
Lots of love. Thanks to everyone that was here. Thank you for watching. Thank you to Nikki for her beautiful vulnerability and openness and just sharing and just being super truthful with where she's at. And I'll be here next Monday, 5:30 p.m. CST. And if you are interested in anything I do, you can follow me on Instagram at Stefanos Sifandos. You can jump on my website, stefanossifandos.com. And if you're interested in coaching, coachwithsteph.com. Pound blessings to you, amazing people. See you soon.